without further ado, Samantha, go ahead and take it away.
So hi, my name is Samantha Logan. I was San Francisco State's 2019 Panetta intern. I just got back from DC about a week and a half ago, and I was placed in Congressman Adam Schiff's office. So I don't know how many of you know Secretary Leon Panetta, but he's very well known in the political sphere, both in California and out in DC. You will get to know that if you get this internship. I also highly recommend his book, whether you get this internship or not. It is a worthwhile read. As you can see, he had a lot to do in political science. He was a House representative. He worked in the Office of Budget and Management. He was actually the last person to give us a balanced budget in the 90s. He was also director of the CIA when he took down bin Laden, and if you get this internship, he tells you the whole story. So first of all, the internship, like I said, you will be the only person to represent San Francisco State. There's also 25 other interns from every CSU, as well as 3 specific private schools. It's a 13-week program. 11 of those weeks are spent in DC. 2 of them are actually at the Panetta Institute in Monterey, sort of a crash course in politics. So if you aren't a poli-sci major, don't worry. If you are a poli-sci major, you will still learn a lot. You have seminars both in Monterey, which you pretty much are in class 9 to 5, Monday through Friday in Monterey. It's a little intense. You have homework every night, but they pay for all your food, your housing, and that is, you will be enrolled at CSU Monterey Bay for those 20 units. You also have seminars once you get over to DC, but it's a lot less hectic. It's about once a week. You'll travel as a group, all 26 of you, to a building in DC, sit down for an hour with someone who knows a lot about their field, and then you do sort of weekly write-ups every week. So you'll have a journal entry where you talk about what you're doing in your office, what you're doing in your free time, and then you also have seminar reviews. Like I said, it is full coverage, so they give you food and housing at CSU Monterey Bay, and then once you get to DC, you're placed in a hotel, and they pay for everything. They pay for airfare. You also get a monthly stipend of $750 to pay for any travel expenses or fun things you want to do. So the interview process is a little crazy. We do recommend sort of meeting with Jose or I before, and then you go to a selection committee, which is I'd say about 6 people. It's very intense, so practice makes perfect. You'll then they'll choose like either the top 1 or 2 people, and those people will interview with our new president. And then from there, 1 person will go, and you still have to interview with the Panetta board, which is the most intense interview.
Just to give you an idea of the timeline for that. So currently, I don't get the letter from Panetta until January, which is a little tricky because it's obviously due in February. Usually the applications are due mid-February, and the timeline looks something like this. So somewhere in February 15th, on a Wednesday, the application is due. I then collect the collect the applications, put them in an Excel sheet, send them to the selection committee. They have next week, so the week after that, to read them, okay? And by the end of that, by the mid point of that week, we will have selected the top 3 candidates, okay? And so on average, I want to say like 7 to 10, well, yeah, 7 to 10 applicants apply, okay? And so in that sense, the odds are good. Okay, so if you put your name in the application pool. It's my job, and the application is very simple and straightforward. Okay, we'll eventually get to that in a bit. It's my job to make the application pool competitive. Okay, it's with the quality of candidate, okay, that we have. And what I try to do is constantly sort of meet with the people that are applying. Partly because you don't have to suffer in silence. This is new, this is going to be tough, you're going to be asked several questions, and I can definitely sort of sit down with you and talk about what that might look like in terms of your specific case and scenario. Even getting a chance to review your some of the content you're thinking about in terms of introducing. Yeah.
So if I can get an understanding, how long is this internship? I thought it was 2 weeks, but it looks like it's a lot longer than just the 2 weeks.
So it's the 2 weeks in Monterey. You start, I want to say, around August. So those first 2 weeks of August, you're in Monterey, and then you fly out mid-August, and you're in DC until the beginning of November.
So I would say a good semester's worth of work,
Mhm.
partly because even though she's here, she's still working on her research paper, which is gonna be, account for the total units as well, okay? So, and so that takes about 2 weeks in terms of the process between getting nominated or getting selected from the application pool, the top three. The top three then are interviewed, okay, by the selection committee. The selection committee then makes the recommendation to the president, okay? The president then meets with the intern or nominees. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's two, and then they make their choice for the Panetta. And then that's just SF State, then Panetta takes over in terms of the final thing.
Yes, and the Panettas have denied people before. So your 2 weeks at CSU Monterey Bay, like I said, it is pretty much 9 to 5. You're in classrooms taking notes for about 8 hours. It's a little intense, but it also gives you a great opportunity to get to know your fellow interns in those 2 weeks. You've never met any of these people, and suddenly you are working with them, living with them, eating with them. You spend all your time with them. You also hear lectures from very prestigious people. So one of my favorites and last year's intern, Daniel, we both agreed one of our favorites was the House parliamentarian Thomas Wickham. He's been the parliamentarian since like the 70s, and he speaks with you both in Monterey, and you will also meet with him again in DC on the House floor, and he gives you a signed copy of the House Rules and Procedures, which is a book about this big. Also, my year, I'm not sure if Daniel had him, but Jeremy Bash spoke to us, and he actually broke down the Mueller investigation in about an hour. All of us were pretty much poli-sci students, and we had read so many articles and books and interviews about this, and he broke it down word for word in an hour, and we all understood it. So you do have assignments due every night. That is a lot different than DC. Like I said, in DC you only have it once a week. So if you can just get through those 2 weeks, I promise it gets better. Okay, so arriving in DC, like I said, you have your 2 weeks in Monterey. That is also when you will be having phone interviews with the office they'll be placing you in DC. Usually during those 2 weeks, Congress is out of session, so it's a little difficult to line those up. Also, you don't have that much of a say in who you're paired with. They just take into account your political affiliation, and then they pretty much place you based on your personality because they know the offices so well. So I had no say in getting placed with Congressman Schiff. We also had people placed with Speaker Pelosi, Leader McCarthy, Ted Lieu, a lot of people. So you leave very, very early Saturday morning. You arrive in DC and travel in a bus to your hotel. Then you sort of get used to hotel living and adjust because you go to work Monday morning. The location of the hotel is very perfect. It's right around the corner from a metro stop, which gets you anywhere. You also walk to work every morning with your interns. It's about 10 minutes from the Rayburn House office building. The other buildings are maybe 12, 15 minutes. Some of the things you do are what you spend your stipend on. So the Smithsonian's are obviously all free. Other museums cost money. I actually took advantage of a lot of seminars and talks, so I got to go see Susan Rice, Madeleine Albright, Samantha Power, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Mayor Pete. You just have to do the research. You also kind of depending on how much you like the other interns, we all went and saw a Washington Nationals game, and they actually won the World Series when we were there, so that was cool. Here's a couple pictures. So the Washington Monument actually had been shut down for 3 years and reopened right when we were there. So you can actually go up to the top now. And that is my view, leaving work every day. So this is the Nationals game we went to, and then those are a couple of the other interns. Brigitte on the left is from Chico, Belinda is from CSU East Bay, and Ciara is from Santa Clara. So I had 2 chances to go to the White House. The first here was on a tour with constituents from the district that I worked in, so LA. And then the right side is actually the White House Fall Garden Tour. It's one of the only times that the public is allowed to come into the grounds and get very close to the White House. So interning on the Hill, some of your tasks are going to be depending on your office. So mine took a lot of constituent calls. You work on press clips, so that essentially means like looking up what like news sources are talking about your member, and you sort of brief it down to like what that member needs to know. Collecting signatures from other offices, so you're running around the tunnels. Giving Capitol tours, that part's actually really fun. So your constituents from whatever district you work in apply for like coming to see the Capitol if they're visiting, and you give them the tour. So you get to know the Capitol very well. Drafting constituent letters, so when they write in expressing concerns, something cool I got to do was we obviously had a lot of people giving input on impeachment. So I actually got to draft the letters that went out to thousands of LA constituents about whether we were pro or con impeachment. So that was fun. I also wrote a letter to the State Department. You also do policy research from like some of your staffers. So each of your staffers will have specific issue areas. And if they're good staffers, which most of them are, they kind of get to know you, know what you're interested in. So I told him I was interested in education policy. So the staffer like dedicated to that would send me to all the briefings and hearings on education, and I'd write up memos for him. You can also attend hearings. So I actually went to Corey Lewandowski's hearing. It was like the first impeachment hearing that was public with the Judiciary Committee. And then also your hours. When you're out of session, you only work 9 to 5, but when you're in session, 9 to 6. So this is from Corey Lewandowski's hearing. I was actually second row. It was very interesting and makes sense why the impeachment hearings were not open to the public yet. So some of the assignments, like I said, you will have weekly journal entries. Those will help you in the end, because at the end you have to write a 20-page reflective journal. So you kind of comprise all those weekly journals and then sort of expand them, and it's kind of fun to see the growth that you've made. You kind of get to write 3 short poems. People had fun with these. They're like the length of a tweet. My year, a lot of us wrote ours on the impeachment hearings, on the passing of Representative Cummings. You can write it on anything. Some of them wrote like homesick ones. So like I said, you do the 20-page journal when you come back, but like I said, you're writing most of that when you're there. And then you have a policy analysis paper, so that one I'm still working on. You have to make it relevant to that current congressional session, so mine is on the Higher Education Act, which hasn't been reauthorized in like 12 years. I think last year, I'm not sure what you did, but a lot of people did like the separation of families last year, wrote their policy paper. One big thing I would say is that the Institute drives home bipartisanship. You cannot be far left, far right. Like, you have to see the other side, be able to work with the other side, understand the other side. They really push that on you. Like Jose said, you will be getting 20 units for this, so it is intense. It's a little shorter than a full semester, but you are putting in the work of a full semester at least. The seminars that you go to in DC, again, they're with more prestigious people. You meet with current members of Congress. We got to sit down with Congressman Jimmy Panetta. He's a Democrat. We also sat down with Congressman Calvert, who was a Republican, and we actually had someone placed in Calvert's office, so that was fun. Like I said, you meet with parliamentarian Wickham again. We met with Professor Alan Blinder, who works at Princeton. This was my office. It goes Rayburn, Cannon, and Longworth. So depending on where you are, people say Rayburn is a maze, but it's not that bad once you get used to it. So from left to right, this is sort of the halls of Congress, the rotunda of Congress. In the middle, that is the apotheosis of Washington, which is the mural at the top. And then on the right is the Library of Congress. As a congressional intern, you do have pretty good access to the Library of Congress, so take advantage of that, especially when you're doing your policy paper. So like I said, the Institute is, there we go. The Institute itself is very well known, not only in California, but also in DC. Talking with the other interns, a lot of us kind of felt ill-prepared, we were scared like to work with the other interns once we got over there, because we all kind of got along with each other, but we didn't know like these Ivy League people and like UCDC. But the Panetta Institute does a great job at preparing you. Those 2 weeks make you stand out from all the other interns over there. Like, I came into Congressman Schiff's office and there was other interns that had been working there months, and I kind of worked my way up to be like a leader in that office just because they said I was competent, I knew what I was talking about, I didn't just get handed that. So you definitely feel good about yourself. It's also a lot less daunting because you are so prepared. And the staff kind of treats you a little different because they can tell that you've worked your butt off to get where you are. Again, because they're so well known, they're able to get these amazing speakers. You can like pass Parliamentarian Wickham like on a random day by Canon and say hi to him. Like, not many people can do that. There's like a high standard, so just be smart about it. We'll just leave it at that. They also spare no expense. Like, they are treating you they want it to be open to not only every major, but every socioeconomic placement. So I don't come from money, but this would have never been an option had they not covered everything. So I really respect that about them, and you can tell like the other interns that they get. We're happy to have this opportunity. So the eligibility, there are a lot of factors. You do have to have a pretty good GPA, 3.3 or above. You have to be a U.S. citizen. So you will be fall of 2020. Once that hits, you have to either be a junior or senior as far as units go. I also highly recommend reaching out to me or Jose when you're going through your eligibility, when you're going through your personal statements, your resumes, choosing the paper to submit. Let's see. You also have to be willing to live with someone else if you haven't lived with roommates. I assume most of you have living in San Francisco. They may not have the same views as you, they may not have the same cleaning habits as you just have to be okay with that. So here are the application requirements. Like I said, the application itself is very simple. Personal statement, just keep working on it. Again, talk to Jose or we can kind of tell you what to focus in on, what to highlight, knowing your background. A copy of a graded paper. So I had actually just finished a California politics course, so I used one of my papers from that course, which was essentially a public policy analysis paper. So kind of pick your paper according to this internship. And then if you've gone to other colleges, make sure to get all your transcripts together. Any questions? Yes.
Hey Sam, how's it going?
Good.
What was your daily life like?